It was a quiet afternoon at a small roadside diner just outside Los Angeles, the kind of place where the waitresses know the regulars by name, and the scent of black coffee and fried eggs hangs in the air. Steven Seagal, dressed simply in a black leather jacket and jeans, walked in with his usual calm swagger. Despite being a Hollywood legend, he looked more like a man enjoying peace than a celebrity seeking attention. He ordered a slice of apple pie and a coffee, greeting the staff with a polite nod. When it came time to pay, Steven reached into his jacket, pulled out a checkbook, and calmly wrote the amount. The cashier, a young woman named Lucy, smiled faintly but frowned when she glanced at the name. "Steven Seagal?" she murmured under her breath. Her coworker leaned in. "You really think that's him? Looks too quiet to be a movie star." Lucy shrugged, eyeing the signature suspiciously. "Could be fake. People do weird things these days." Instead of asking politely, she slipped into the back and made a quick call to local law enforcement. "Yeah, I think someone's trying to cash a fraudulent check," she said nervously. Within minutes, the bell above the diner door jingled again. This time, 2 police officers entered. Officer Craig Daniels and his partner, Officer Mason. They scanned the room and immediately locked eyes on Steven, still sipping his coffee, unaware of the growing tension. Daniels stepped forward. "Sir, can we speak with you for a moment?" Steven turned slowly, his deep voice calm but firm. "Of course, officer. What's the problem?" "The check you just wrote," Daniels said sharply. "Where'd you get it?" Steven blinked, a hint of confusion crossing his face. "Get it? I wrote it." The diner went silent. Forks paused midair. Daniels' hand hovered near his belt, his tone dripping with suspicion. "You expect me to believe you're Steven Seagal?" A few customers began whispering, pulling out their phones. One muttered, "Oh, this is about to go bad." Steven placed his coffee cup down, his expression steady. "Officer," he said quietly, "I don't appreciate being accused without reason." What happened next left everyone in the diner absolutely speechless. The diner's hum of chatter vanished as soon as the officer's tone shifted from curious to confrontational. Officer Daniels stepped closer to Steven's booth, his jaw tight, his hand still hovering near his holster. His partner, Officer Mason, stayed a few feet behind, watchful, uncertain. Steven, calm as stone, looked from one officer to the other. "I don't understand," he said evenly. "What exactly is this about?" Daniels snatched the check from the counter and waved it in front of him. "This check looks fake," he said. "Name doesn't match the signature, routing numbers look off. And I don't believe for a second that you're Steven Seagal." Steven tilted his head slightly, his dark glasses reflecting the officer's face. "You're telling me I forged a check with my own name on it?" The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. Daniels didn't find it funny. "You think this is a joke? You could be facing felony fraud." Steven's tone remained calm, his voice low but firm. "I'm not here to cause trouble, officer. That's my check. You can verify it with the bank or my assistant." But Daniels wasn't listening. He saw the calm demeanor not as confidence but as defiance. He took a half-step closer, his shadow falling across the table. "Sir, I'm giving you one last chance to tell me who you really are." The tension was thick enough to cut. The waitress, Lucy, bit her lip, realizing her quick phone call might have just spiraled out of control. The cook peeked through the kitchen window, whispering, "Man, that's really Steven Seagal." A man in the corner started recording on his phone. "This is crazy," he muttered. "They're harassing the guy for paying with a check." Steven finally sighed. "Look, officer, you're making a mistake. I'm happy to cooperate, but please don't raise your voice in front of these people. There's no need for hostility." Daniel smirked. "Hostility? You think this is hostility? Wait till we get downtown." His partner Mason stepped forward. "Craig, maybe we should double-check before I stay out of it," Daniel snapped. "I know a fake when I see one." Steven's patience was thinning, though his voice never rose. "You're accusing me without evidence. I've worked with law enforcement my whole career. I expect better judgment." That name, law enforcement, seemed to irritate Daniels even more. "Oh, so now you're one of us? You some kind of movie cop?" Whispers rippled through the diner. One woman whispered, "He really is Steven Seagal, though." Another said, "Why doesn't he just tell them?" But Steven didn't pull the fame card. He never did. Instead, he stood slowly, his tall frame commanding attention. He looked Daniels in the eye and said quietly, "You should verify before you accuse." Daniels tensed, taking the stance of a man expecting resistance. "Don't move!" Steven froze, hands visible. The air was electric. You could hear the hum of the diner's neon sign and the soft beep of someone's phone recording. "Officer," Steven said again, calm as ever. "You're escalating something that could have been handled with one phone call." Mason looked around, clearly uncomfortable now. "Craig, everyone's watching." But Daniel's ego was already on fire. "Then let them watch," he barked. "Let them see what happens when someone lies to an officer." Steven's eyes narrowed just slightly. He didn't speak, didn't flinch, didn't move an inch. His silence spoke volumes. The composure of a man who'd faced real danger, not just loud voices. Lucy whispered to her co-worker, "What if it is real? What if he's telling the truth?" The co-worker sighed. "Then that cop just picked the wrong guy to mess with." For a moment it seemed like Daniels might cool down. Mason reached out, placing a hand on his partner's shoulder. But Daniels shrugged him off. "He's not leaving until I get answers." Steven took a slow breath. "You already have them." Daniels glared at him. "We'll see about that," he turned to Lucy. "You called it in." "You still think he's legit?" Lucy hesitated. I don't know. I just thought something was off." "He didn't look like—" "Like what?" Steven asked gently. "Like someone who writes checks?" Her face fell, embarrassed. Daniels smirked as if that somehow proved his point. "Exactly." The diner's murmurs grew louder. Some started openly filming. A truck driver in the back called out, "Hey man, you're overreacting. He's not doing anything." Daniels turned on the man. "Stay out of it." The officer's temper was slipping fast. Steven stayed steady, but everyone could feel it. The storm was coming. Then Steven said the one thing that pushed Daniels over the edge. "Respect is a choice, officer. I hope you make the right one." Daniels' eyes darkened. The veins in his neck pulsed. "Are you threatening me?" Steven's voice was barely above a whisper. "No. I'm reminding you who you are." The diner went completely silent. No one breathed. Every phone camera was pointed at them now. Mason, tense and uncertain, took a step forward. "Craig, let's just—" But Daniels cut him off, slamming his palm on the counter. "Enough talk. Let's see what you're really hiding." He reached for Steven's jacket, and that's when everything went wrong. Have you ever been wrongly accused of something you didn't do? Let me know your experience in the comments. And also, tell us which country and city you're watching this story from. It's amazing to see where our viewers are tuning in around the world. But what happened next, when the officer lost control, shocked everyone inside that diner. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Every eye in the diner was locked on Officer Daniels, whose hand now gripped the edge of Steven Seagal's jacket. The hum of the air conditioner, the clinking of silverware, everything faded into a tense, suffocating silence. Steven didn't resist. He simply stood there, motionless, his broad frame steady and his expression unreadable. He had seen men like Daniels before, men whose tempers burned faster than their logic. "Let go," Steven said quietly, not as a threat, as a warning. But Daniels only sneered. "You think you can talk to me like that? I don't care who you are." His partner, Officer Mason, shifted nervously behind him. "Craig, seriously, calm down. He's cooperating." "Cooperating?" Daniels barked. "This guy's mocking us." Steven's voice was calm but cold now. "I've shown you respect. You might try returning it, that did it." Daniels' ego snapped like a brittle wire. Before anyone could react, he swung. A hard, angry punch connected squarely with Steven's jaw. Gasps erupted through the diner. Someone screamed. A cup of coffee shattered on the floor. Mason froze, horrified. "Craig, what the hell did you just do?" Steven didn't move for a second. His head turned slightly from the force, but when he looked back, his expression was pure steel. No anger, no shock, just that calm, steady stare that could freeze a man in place. Daniel stumbled backward, suddenly realizing what he'd done. His own adrenaline made his hands tremble. He was resisting, he shouted defensively. But no one believed him. Half the diner had their phones out now, recording every second. The footage was raw, unfiltered, and damning. Steven slowly raised a hand and touched the corner of his lip. A small streak of blood appeared. He glanced at it, then wiped it away with his thumb. And then, he smiled. That slight, unnerving smile that made entire movie theaters go silent in his films. The crowd murmured louder. Lucy, the waitress, looked pale. "Oh my God," she whispered. "He hit him. He actually hit Steven Seagal." Steven straightened his jacket, his voice calm as ever. "You just made a mistake," he said. "A big one." Mason tried to intervene, stepping between them. "Craig, that's enough. He didn't fight back, he didn't do anything." But Daniel's pride was too wounded to retreat. "You saw that. He was taunting me." "No," Steven said softly. "I was reminding you of your duty." His words landed like a slap. Not loud, but sharp enough to sting. Daniels pointed at him, desperate to reclaim control. "You're under arrest." "For what?" Steven asked. For assaulting an officer." Daniels stammered, realizing how ridiculous it sounded even as he said it. The crowd erupted. "He didn't touch you. We saw everything. You're the one who hit him." One older man stood up, phone raised high. "I got it all on camera." "You're done, buddy." Daniels turned toward the crowd, eyes wide, face red with rage and fear. Mason grabbed his arm. "Craig, stop. You've gone too far." But Steven wasn't interested in revenge or shouting. He simply sat back down in his booth, picked up his coffee, still somehow unspilled, and took a slow sip. That quiet act carried more power than any punch could. The diners looked at him with awe. His stillness commanded the room. Even Mason stood frozen, realizing that this man wasn't just calm, he was in control. Daniels, breathing heavily, looked around and saw every phone pointed at him. The truth was already escaping through a dozen lenses, spreading far beyond that small diner. He took a shaky step back, muttering, "You people don't understand." He was being aggressive. Steven looked up. "You threw the first punch. That's the only thing anyone will remember." Daniels couldn't respond. He turned toward the door, running a hand down his face, muttering under his breath as Mason radioed in backup, trying to salvage what was left of the situation. In the corner, Lucy whispered to her coworker, "He didn't even flinch. He could have flattened that cop with one move, and he didn't." Her coworker nodded slowly. "That's real power." As Steven stood to leave, the diners instinctively cleared a path for him. Not out of fear, out of respect. Before stepping outside, he looked back once at Daniels, who now sat slumped in a booth, face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Steven said only one thing. "Next time, check your facts before you throw a punch." Then he walked out into the sunlight, as calm as he had entered. The crowd erupted, half in applause, half in disbelief. Mason followed him out, trying to apologize, but Steven simply waved it off. "Do your job," he said quietly. "Just do it right." The cameras kept rolling as the police cruiser lights flashed outside, the beginning of what would soon become a nationwide story. If you were in Steven's place and calm and being wrongly attacked, would you fight back or stay composed like he did? Type your answer in the comments below. But when witnesses came forward and the truth about the check finally came out, the officers' careers would never be the same again. Outside the diner, the flashing red and blue lights painted the walls like a warning. 2 more patrol cars arrived within minutes. Word had spread fast. An officer had struck a man during a simple check verification call. Inside, murmurs buzzed like static. Everyone was talking, whispering, replaying the moment over and over in disbelief. Steven Seagal stood quietly near the counter, his coffee now cold, while Officer Mason tried to calm the chaos. Daniels was pacing near the door, sweat trickling down his temple, mumbling excuses to himself. "Craig, you hit him," Mason said flatly. "There's no talking your way out of that." Daniels snapped. "You saw how he looked at me. Like he was daring me." "That's not a crime," Mason shot back. The tension between the officers was visible now, their voices low but heated. Customers exchanged glances, whispering, "This is bad. He's gonna lose his job." Meanwhile, Lucy, the cashier who'd called 911, couldn't stay still. She clutched the receipt book, guilt gnawing at her. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she muttered. "I just thought—" Steven turned toward her, his voice calm and kind. "You thought you were doing your job," he said. "But assumptions are dangerous things." Lucy's eyes widened. "You're really Steven Seagal?" He gave a faint smile. "Last time I checked." A gasp rippled through the diner. The people who had been unsure suddenly leaned closer, whispering his name like they were saying something forbidden. "That is him." "No way. The real Steven Seagal?" "I knew it. I told you." Within moments, phones were out again. This time not just recording, but fact-checking. A young man in a hoodie scrolled through his phone, comparing photos online. "Guys, it's true. Look, same face, same tattoo, same everything." He held up his screen to show the others. He's an actor, martial artist, ex-law enforcement consultant, and this dude thought he was a scammer? The whispers turned into outrage. "He hit Steven Seagal," one woman shouted. "You're finished, man." Officer Daniels froze, looking around as the crowd's energy turned from fear to fury. Mason stepped back, realizing the situation had spiraled completely out of control. Steven raised a hand. "Please," he said calmly, "no shouting. The truth doesn't need noise." Even in chaos, his tone carried authority, the kind that silenced a room without demanding it. Lucy covered her mouth, trembling. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Seagal. I swear I didn't mean—" Steven interrupted gently. "It's all right. What's done is done. What matters now is accountability." Outside, more officers arrived, and this time higher ranks. A sergeant entered, scanning the scene, his face hard. "What's going on here?" Before anyone could speak, a bystander approached him, phone raised. "We've got everything on camera." The officer hit him, unprovoked. The sergeant frowned.
"Hit who?"
The man turned his phone around, showing the footage, and in it Steven's face was unmistakable. The sergeant blinked, his tone instantly shifting. "Wait, that's Steven Seagal." He turned toward Daniels, who stood rigid, his face ghost white. "You hit Steven Seagal?" Daniels tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He was resisting." "No, he wasn't," Mason interrupted firmly. "He was calm. From the start." The entire time. The sergeant exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You just assaulted a high-profile citizen on camera over a check that wasn't even fraudulent." Lucy, voice shaking, added, "The check already cleared, sir. I just got the bank confirmation message." The sergeant turned toward her, disbelief spreading across his face. "You mean the check was real?" "Yes," she said softly. "It was legitimate." The crowd erupted again, some shouting, others filming closer, zooming in on Daniel's broken expression. Steven stood quietly amid the chaos, his composure unshaken. "You see," he said evenly, "truth has a way of finding its way out, even when people try to bury it." Mason turned to him, genuine regret in his eyes. "Mr. Seagal, I'm so sorry for what happened. You didn't deserve any of this." Steven nodded. "Just remember what I said. Respect is earned by how you treat people, not by what's on your badge." The sergeant looked at Daniels, his voice cold and formal now. "Officer Daniels, you're relieved of duty, effective immediately. Hand me your weapon and badge." Daniels' mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked around the room one last time, at the phones, the faces, the judgment in every pair of eyes, and knew his career was over. Slowly, he unpinned his badge, placed it on the table, and walked toward the door, his head down. Outside, the sound of applause rose from the bystanders who had gathered on the sidewalk. Not wild cheers, but slow, steady claps of respect for Steven's restraint. His calm dignity in the face of humiliation. Lucy wiped her tears and said softly, "You could have fought back, but you didn't." Steven smiled faintly. "That's because I already won." He turned toward the door, the flashing lights reflecting in his sunglasses as he stepped out into the California sun. Behind him, Officer Mason whispered to the sergeant, "He didn't even press charges." The sergeant nodded, watching Steven leave. He didn't have to. But the story didn't end there. Within hours, the video would explode online, and the officer's punishment would shock everyone. By the next morning, the diner incident wasn't just local news. It was everywhere. Clips from half a dozen smartphones had gone viral overnight, each showing a different angle of the same shocking moment. Officer Daniels punching Steven Seagal in public. Unprovoked. Headlines flashed across every platform. Cop punches Steven Seagal over alleged fake check. Truth will shock you. Hollywood star assaulted by officer. Stays calm. Teaches lesson in dignity. Outrage grows after viral video shows abuse of power. Millions of people were watching, sharing, and commenting. Some were furious. Others were inspired. But everyone had one question on their minds. How could something like this happen? In Los Angeles, talk shows and podcasts dissected the footage frame by frame. Legal experts debated police conduct. Celebrities tweeted their support. And in the middle of it all, Steven stayed silent. He sat in his quiet home outside Los Angeles, sipping green tea in his garden. The sound of birds, the rustle of bamboo, a world away from the chaos online. His assistant, Tara, rushed out with her tablet. "Steven, it's blowing up." CNN, TMZ, even BBC picked it up. "They're asking for your statement." Steven smiled faintly. "They can wait," Tara frowned. "Sir, this could be your moment. Everyone's behind you." "If you make a statement now," he interrupted gently, "if I speak in anger, I become part of the noise. I'll speak when it means something." That quiet discipline, that control man was exactly why people admired him. Even those who weren't fans of his movies were praising his calm. In a world where outrage ruled, Steven Seagal had shown restraint. Across town, however, the mood was different. At the police precinct, the air was thick with tension. Officer Daniel sat in the chief's office, hands clasped, eyes hollow. "He hadn't slept all night. Do you understand what you've done?" the chief asked, his tone measured but deadly serious. Daniel swallowed hard. "Sir, I thought he was—" "You thought wrong," the chief snapped. "You struck a civilian on camera without cause. And not just any civilian. A public figure with law enforcement training credentials. The world saw that punch, Daniels. There's no coming back." Daniel's voice cracked. "I didn't mean—" The chief slammed a folder shut. "Intent doesn't matter anymore. Results do. You embarrassed this department. You violated your oath, and you've made every decent cop's job harder." There was silence for a moment. The chief sighed. "Internal Affairs will finish their report today. But for now, you're officially terminated." Daniels didn't argue. He just sat there numb, the weight of his pride crashing down on him. Meanwhile, Mason was being interviewed by the press. "Officer Mason," one reporter asked, "why didn't you intervene sooner?" He hesitated. "I tried. But when you're in the field with a partner losing control, you're faced with a choice. Protect your partner's pride, or protect the public's trust. I chose too late." The clip aired everywhere. People praised Mason's honesty, but demanded deeper accountability. The department, under immense public pressure, announced a review of all use-of-force protocols. The scandal was growing beyond one diner. It had become a symbol, a mirror reflecting society's flaws. That evening, Steven finally agreed to an interview. Not with a news anchor or a major network, but with a small independent journalist who'd reached out respectfully. They met in his garden, the setting sun casting warm light across the scene. The journalist, nervous but sincere, began, "Mr. Seagal, the world saw you stay calm when most people would have fought back. Why?" Steven looked out across the water. "Because anger blinds judgment," he said. "When someone disrespects you, you have two choices. Become like them or rise above them. I chose peace because peace wins in the end." The journalist leaned forward. "What would you say to people who are angry, who feel this is another example of abuse of power?" Steven paused. "Be angry at injustice, not at people. People can change. Systems can improve, but only if we stay calm enough to demand it." The clip went live that night, and within hours it had more views than the original diner footage. His words struck a chord. Thousands of comments poured in. "This man just gave the most powerful response I've ever heard. Calm doesn't mean weak, and it means control. We need more people like Steven Seagal." By midnight, Daniel's name was trending, but not in sympathy. The department confirmed multiple suspensions, including for officers who failed to de-escalate. Lucy, the waitress, released her own public apology video, crying as she said, "I judge someone by appearance. I'll never make that mistake again." Steven shared her video on his page with one short caption. "Accountability isn't about punishment, and it's about learning." That single line was reposted thousands of times. It became the quote of the week. And while the media frenzy slowly shifted toward other stories, one thing stayed constant. The respect Steven had earned not from a movie fight, but from his refusal to throw one. What would you have done in Steven's place? Fight back or stay calm? Comment your answer and the country you're watching from. But when the department's final decision came down and the officer's fate was sealed, the world saw one last twist no one expected. A week after the viral explosion, the city buzzed with anticipation. The police review board was meeting behind closed doors to finalize disciplinary actions against the officers involved. Every news outlet had a camera parked outside the precinct. Reporters spoke in hushed tones, microphones poised, waiting for the official statement that would determine careers and reputations. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. Officer Mason sat quietly in the back row, his hands folded, eyes heavy with guilt. Officer Craig Daniels sat 2 seats away, unshaven, exhausted, his badge already turned in. The chief sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. After reviewing the footage, multiple witness accounts, and both officers' statements, the chairwoman began, "The board has reached its conclusion." The room went still. Officer Craig Daniels, "You are found in violation of departmental conduct, misuse of force, and failure to uphold duty of respect. You are hereby terminated from service effective immediately." Daniels closed his eyes, exhaling shakily. It wasn't unexpected, but hearing the words made it final. "Officer Mason," she continued, "while your actions did not constitute misconduct, your failure to intervene sooner requires accountability. You are suspended without pay for 30 days. Mason nodded, accepting it quietly. He had no defense. As the gavel struck, reporters outside erupted. Within minutes, the news was out. Both officers disciplined. Justice served. But even as the public celebrated the verdict, something else was brewing, because Steven Seagal, the man at the center of it all, wasn't interested in punishment. Later that afternoon, Steven arrived at the precinct in person. Cameras swarmed the entrance as he stepped out of his black SUV, dressed simply in a black jacket and sunglasses. He ignored the shouting questions and walked calmly inside. Every officer in the lobby fell silent as he passed. Even those who hadn't been involved felt the weight of what he represented. Integrity, restraint, control. The chief stood from his desk. "Mr. Seagal," he said respectfully, "we didn't expect you." Steven nodded slightly. "I'm not here for cameras or headlines. I'm here for a conversation." He glanced at the hallway. "Is Daniels still here?" The chief hesitated, then motioned toward an empty office. "He's clearing out his locker." Steven walked over. Inside, Daniels sat slumped at a table, a small box of his belongings beside him. Badge, name tag, a few family photos. When he saw Steven, he froze. "You here to rub it in?" Daniels muttered bitterly. Steven shook his head. "No, I'm here to make peace." Daniels laughed dryly. "Peace? I ruined my career, embarrassed my department, and you became a hero because of me." "I didn't become anything because of you," Steven said calmly. "I just stayed true to myself. You let anger control you. Now it's time to learn from it." Daniel's voice cracked. "You don't understand. I wasn't always like this. I used to believe in the badge. Then years of stress, disrespect, people lying to my face, and it changes you. That day I saw a man I thought was mocking me. I snapped." Steven studied him silently for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Pain doesn't excuse injustice, but acknowledging it, and that's the first step back." Daniels frowned. "Why are you even talking to me?" "I don't deserve it." "Because forgiveness isn't about who deserves it," Steven replied. "It's about freeing yourself from hate." For the first time, Daniels looked up, really looked, and saw not an actor, not a viral symbol, but a man extending empathy to someone who had humiliated him in front of the world. The silence stretched. Finally, Daniels said, "You're a better man than I'll ever be." Steven smiled faintly. "No, I just had more chances to learn from my mistakes." Outside, reporters were still waiting. When Steven emerged, microphones flew toward him. "Mr. Seagal, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you think the punishment was enough? Will you sue the department?" Steven paused at the top of the precinct steps. "No lawsuit," he said. The crowd went silent. "The officer has already lost what matters most, his integrity. Taking more from him won't restore mine. What I want is change." A reporter called out, "What kind of change?" "The kind that starts with respect," Steven said. "No one should be judged by how they look, what they wear, or where they come from. We all make mistakes, but if we can't forgive, we'll never grow." That short speech went viral within hours, even faster than the diner footage. Clips flooded social media. Seagal forgives the officer who punched him, asks for respect, not revenge. Real-life martial arts of the heart, Steven Seagal's calm message after chaos. People were stunned. Some said it was the most powerful thing he'd ever done, more than any movie role or speech. Meanwhile, Daniels disappeared from the spotlight. But weeks later, a quiet photo surfaced. Him volunteering at a local community center, helping underprivileged kids learn discipline through boxing. The caption read, "Trying to do better." And beneath it someone commented, "Even Seagal would approve of this." That night, Steven sat alone on his porch, watching the sunset. Tara came out holding her phone. "You've seen the news?" she asked. Steven smiled. "I saw something better. I saw change." She tilted her head. "You think people will remember this?" He sipped his tea. "Maybe not the details, but they'll remember how it made them feel." He looked out toward the horizon. "That's enough. If you believe forgiveness is stronger than revenge, type peace in the comments and tell me where you're watching from." But when Steven thought the story was over, in an unexpected message from the officer would remind him that his words had changed a life forever. 3 months passed. The noise had faded. The headlines were gone, the outrage cooled, and life had returned to its usual rhythm. But for Steven Seagal, something about that day in the diner lingered. Not as anger, but as a reminder. He often found himself revisiting the same spot each morning, his porch, a cup of green tea in hand, watching the sky shift from orange to gold. He had no idea that this calm morning would bring the story's most unexpected twist. Tara walked out holding her phone. "You might want to see this," she said softly. Steven took the phone, scanning the screen. It was a message on social media, a long one, sent from a private account. The name stopped him cold. Craig Daniels. For a moment he hesitated. Then he began to read. "Mr. Seagal, I don't expect you to forgive me again, but I need you to know what your words did. The day you came to the station, I was angry at everyone, the department, the media, myself. I wanted to disappear. But when you spoke to me, something clicked. You didn't humiliate me. You didn't throw me away. You treated me like a man who could still change. That moment saved me." Steven paused, his eyes narrowing slightly as he kept reading. "I started volunteering at a youth center downtown. I teach self-defense and discipline to kids who've already seen too much of the wrong kind of authority. Every time I step into that gym, I remember what you said, that forgiveness isn't weakness. I'm trying to prove you right." There was a photo attached. Daniel surrounded by smiling kids in boxing gloves, laughing, teaching. His expression was different now, softer, lighter. "I'll never erase what I did, but I'm learning to be better than the man I was that day. Thank you for giving me that chance." Steven lowered the phone slowly. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he smiled. That quiet, knowing smile that carried both peace and sadness. Tara watched him silently. "You okay?" He nodded. "Better than okay, that's the real victory." She looked thoughtful. "You really think people can change like that?" Steven turned toward the horizon. "I don't just think it, I've seen it. Sometimes a single act of mercy can change a life. Sometimes it takes years, but it starts with one choice, not to fight when you could." Tara nodded slowly. "So, are you going to reply?" He looked back at the phone, the message still open, the photo still glowing on the screen. Then he typed just one sentence. "Proud of you. Keep teaching peace." He hit send. For a long moment he just sat there, the soft hum of the wind rustling through the trees. The world had moved on from the story, but for the two men who lived it, its lesson had just begun. Weeks later, the youth center posted a video on social media. It showed Officer Daniels, now Coach Craig, teaching a group of kids to breathe through anger, to control their reactions, to use strength for protection, not domination. At the end of the clip, he quoted Steven's exact words from that day. "Anger blinds judgment. Peace wins in the end." The video went viral again, not because of scandal, but because of redemption. People across the world commented, "This story started with hate and ended with healing." Seagal didn't just stop a fight, he started a change. Back at his home, Steven saw the clip. He smiled, leaned back in his chair and whispered to himself, "Respect. That's what lasts." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of orange, the same calm color as that first moment before everything began. And just like that, the story of a punch became a lesson the whole world would never forget. If you believe respect and forgiveness can change the world, type respect in the comments and tell me what city or country you're watching from.